And I'd like to welcome you all to the Happy Scientist seminar. I forget the number for this, but we're in the 20s, I think, now. Unlocking the power of AI, Copilot for R. Paul will be giving the beginning of this, so without further delay, Paul, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, David. Yeah, we're going to tag team this. So I'll be doing the first bit, which will be a general introduction to Copilot for R. Mingji is then going to talk about some of the modeling that underlies these large language models upon which Copilot is built. And then we'll finish off with John doing probably the most important bit, which is showing you a demo of actually how to get the thing installed and running. So the Happy Scientist seminar series is an occasional series in which we feature things that help us be more productive and therefore happier as scientists. And we traditionally feature a scientist, and unfortunately they're traditionally dead white guys, and this month is no exception. So Pierre-Francois Bouchard was a general and engineer actually in Napoleon's army when they discovered the Rosetta Stone and understood the significance of the fact that it had the same piece of text written in 3 different languages, two of which, if I remember correctly, were ancient Egyptian and one of which was ancient Greek, or the other way around. We knew how to translate, or they knew how to translate ancient Greek, but they did not know how to translate ancient Egyptian. So obviously having the same thing written in 2 different languages essentially was really useful in helping generate translations of Egyptian text. So it was at least vaguely related to what Copilot does for R, which is that it helps you write code. Right. And it does that using large language models. So I thought, since it was built upon these AI models, it would be an interesting and somewhat meta thing to ask ChatGPT to actually write this introductory set of slides for me. So I take no credit for the content of these slides. I went to this site and I wrote that prompt. And what you're about to see is verbatim what it gave me. And so I've left everything in there. I deleted a couple of optional slides because they weren't relevant for today. But all the text you're going to see, except for a few tiny pieces which I've put in red, which I added, are what you get from, in this instance, openai.com when you write that prompt, which is an example, right? This is just generating text. Code is just generating text in the form of code. So here's the first slide. I did have to format it. Unfortunately, it was not able to put this in Keynote for me. So I actually had to format the title and the slides, but the titles are the titles OpenAI generated for me. And you'll notice I've italicized the first bullet point on every slide because that seems to be an instruction to me about what I should be doing while I'm presenting each slide. And I thought it was just fun to leave that in there. So today I'm going to welcome and thank you. We've already done this, I think, for joining us today. It's nice to see so many people on the call and in the room. You know the topic already, and hopefully you know who I am, but I'm a long-term research professor now in Biostatistics division at USC. So what are you going to expect? I confess I've never understood the point of overview slides, but OpenAI suggested I have one, and I know I'm swimming against the tide by not including them. So here's an overview of what you're going to do. I'm going to introduce Copilot for you, show some of the key features, or at least talk over some of the key features and benefits. The getting started with Copilot will be deferred to John, and he will show you how to do that, including 1 or 2 use cases and examples. And probably all 3 of us will talk on and off about tips for effective usage. And then we'll have a QA session. We'll probably do that at the end of the entire session rather than the end of my piece. And I think we might consider having another session if people embrace this idea later in the semester, in which we compare our experiences when we actually try using it, but we can decide that later. So what is Copilot for R? I have to define it, et cetera, et cetera. It's essentially a large language model that generates code rather than English or other language. It does it in 4 various different computational languages. We're going to focus on R here because that's the language we tend to use in this division. It is slowly being integrated in IDEs for R. So John and I had to learn it using Visual Studio because that was the only implementation at the time. I got a message from John last week, I think it was, saying it's now in R. And I think today he's going to walk you through how to install it in R. But you can also do it within Visual Studio, which is a perfectly respectable IDE, just not one I'd used for many years. So that makes it easy to use. But it's important to note you can also use it just by going to the website I gave at the beginning, ChatGPT's website, and just typing in requests for code, and it will write code for you. I don't know whether it does it any better in the IDEs than outside them. That's something to be discovered. So why is it a valuable tool? I've used it a little bit, and it's most valuable for me in terms of just code generation. You type in a comment saying what you're about to do, and it spits back some code that it says probably does that. And probably is an important word to note there. So it's very good at generating bits of code for you. It does that by just looking, it's in some sense a pattern recognition algorithm or an imputation algorithm. It tries to impute what should come next, given the information you give it up to that point. The important caveat is that it's not guaranteed to be correct. It's just what it finds on the web when it does. It's essentially using its generation model. It can apparently provide helpful documentation. I have no experience of that, so I can't really tell you anything about that. It can help identify and fix errors. I've not explored that using Visual Studio. John can talk about whether he has. I know Mingxi has explored it in the ChatGPT window itself, and I've been doing that today. And if you type in a bit of code, a bit of R code with an obvious error, it will tell you what that obvious error is. It will even critique a piece of code I gave it that I thought was error-free. And in fact, it said it probably was error-free, but you're doing a bunch of things here which seem a bit dodgy, and you might want to check those. So it does seem to have the ability to help identify and fix errors, but I don't have a vast amount of experience with that yet. So for that reason, it's probably good at code review and suggesting best practices. And I have no experience of the collaboration point, but it claims to also be good at facilitating collaboration between our developers. So in order to use it, unless you just want to go straight to ChatGPT, which seems to work, but probably the ideal way to do it is to install and set up using some ID of choice. And John will walk you through that in a minute. I actually don't know what's meant by authentication and access, so I can't address that point. But he will show you how to get using Copilot within your own R projects and R code. The claims for where it's good, and again, I can only speak to some of these. Data analysis, I can't speak to that one. I don't know how it simplifies data administration, manipulation, and visualization. I can speak to code generation, or no, not specifically for machine learning tasks. It seems to be quite good at general stats tasks. One thing I've noticed, and John may speak to this as well, is the more specialized your task gets, as you might expect, the less good it gets at suggesting code, because it's relying on a body of knowledge out there in the web in some sense. And so the more specialized your task is, the less large that body of knowledge probably is. And it will make wrong suggestions. I've seen it do that, so you do need to carefully check any code it suggests. The claim is it's good for package creation. I can't speak to that yet. I can imagine how it might be good for suggesting documentation, but I haven't tried it. And I can't speak to data cleaning, but that's another claim for what it's good at. So tips for effective usage, there's a number of things there. By far, the most important thing I've learned in my limited usage is that context is really, really important. The more context you can give it, the more likely it is to make a suggestion that's relevant for what you're doing. And so that means, so far, in my experience, make sure you tell it the libraries you're using. As you've written some functions, it begins to understand what you're sort of playing with. And so the suggestions it makes for the next thing you're going to write is more likely to be relevant. So help it as far as you can. We seem to think, John and I haven't spoken to Mingxi about this, that it learns what you are doing and what might be useful suggestions. I don't know how it does that, and I don't know if that's even a true statement, but our suspicion is that it seems to learn what you're doing and get better at making relevant suggestions the more you use it. It can review code for accuracy. Again, I don't know how to do that yet within an IDE, but you can certainly do it using openai.com. And as I mentioned, I can't speak to collaboration yet. And it is a new technology, so it's important to keep an eye out on what's being updated. And
it's okay, it's being recorded. Just a minute. Irina, is it your list?
Say that again, sorry.
Sorry.
I think that was just random interference. So we will have a Q&A session, but we'll hold, I mean, I'll take any immediate questions now if anyone's got any, but I suggest for the bulk of it, we hold it off until we've done the other parts. Nonetheless, I'm going to encourage you to use it. And what my dream here is that you'll all be so enthused by this idea that some large fraction of you will go away and try and use Copilot. And if that does happen and there's enough interest, my suggestion is we do a follow-up session in a month or two, which is just a round table in which we compare what we've learned from it, what works, what doesn't work, because I think that would be useful for all of us. But I'll let you decide. I mean, if you think that would be useful, email either David or myself or Kim, and we'll set that session up for later in this semester. So just a brief pause now in case anyone has any immediate questions.
So, Paul, can you hear me? And this is David. Is there a cost? Because I looked at sort of those Copilot GitHub sites. There was an individual cost and a general use cost or something like that.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. I should have spoken to that. Yes, if you're just running personal accounts on GitHub, the cost seems to be $19 per user. I've dug into it a little bit. The claim is, if you're an educational establishment, it should be free, but I haven't managed to get that to actually happen yet. So I've been trying, but I've not successfully got to the point where I can implement it on our Biostats GitHub site and enable it to be free for users registered to that. So I'll keep looking into that. The problem I'm running into, in case anyone knows how to do this, I don't know who to ask at GitHub. I don't know, there's no obvious place to ask for help. Apart from the usual generic websites where you ask coding questions. But I haven't found anyone at GitHub who I can contact and say, we're an educational establishment, we want to use it, how do I do it? Every time I try to do it, it asks me for my personal credit card details, which is where I stop. If we're willing to input some departmental credit card, then we could probably try and get past that step and see, but we can have that discussion offline. But that's a great question. I will try and get it installed or available to you for free through the Biostats GitHub repo, but we're not quite there yet. Any other questions? If not, I'm supposed to summarize the key takeaways. So it has the potential, I think, to be a really powerful tool for our developers, or in fact, any developers in any language. What it seems to be specifically good or particularly good at is routine coding. If you just type comments to do some simple thing, like take logs of something or do some, generate 10 normal random variables, it will give you code instantly. Simple functions, I think it will probably write very reliably. It gets less useful the more specialized your job is, but the claim you'll hear people make, and it's certainly been my experience so far, is that it's good at doing the sort of mundane stuff you need to do in the code and let you focus your valued intellectual horsepower on the more detailed and specialized stuff. So it's a useful sort of helper for the more mundane bits of code. It does offer all these things like code suggestion, which is by far the thing I've explored most so far, and error handling. But context is key, and I can't stress that enough. The more context you give it, the more helpful it will be to you. So at this, with full sincerity, thank you for your participation in the seminar so far, but we'll do that. We'll give you another opportunity to be thanked and to participate at the end. These slides will be uploaded somewhere. Kim or David can tell you where they'll go. Those are the contact details for the three who are presenting today. If you have any questions you want to send us afterwards, please feel free to email us there. And I express my gratitude for your audience, to the audience for attending. And I do, this is very interactive, right? We have no experts here on this subject, not that I'm aware of. If there's one in the audience, please do reach out. We're all learning this. It does have the potential to be useful. So I think it would behoove us to share our knowledge as we learn it. I'm supposed to end the presentation on a positive note. So I was going to say, how about them Dodgers? But they just got knocked out, I think, at the end of the MLB playoffs. So I'll simply say the weather they're in Virginia, which is where I am right now, is lovely right now. These are a couple of useful links that we'll add to these on. I think this will eventually end up on GitHub. So as we find useful links, we'll add to them. I learned of this from this bottom presentation, Copilot for R, which is a really nice introduction. I forget what seminar series it is or who the presenter was, but it's a really nice little presentation that goes into this in a little bit of detail. John learned how to install it on Visual Studio using the first link. I think I puzzled through it using other links that I will also try and dig up. But those may be useful links to you as you're trying to learn this. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and pass you over. Oh, I think I have already, have I? Pass you over to Mingji to talk about some of the theory underlying these large language models.
Go ahead, share your, so you don't have to just go ahead and share your, doing the Zoom and then share the through the Zoom. This will pick up the sound. So everybody should, yep. Good, we're seeing that. Just leave sound off, we're good. Okay,
Hello everyone. Today I'd like to provide some overview of the architecture of the transformer and the GPT model. And transformer is the GPT is the core of the Copilot created by Paul, and it is belongs to the family of transformer.
I think you're gonna have to talk into the microphone a little bit more,
Oh, okay.
if possible.
Transformer is a revolution in the field of NLP, the natural language processing, and it uses the self-attention mechanism. It is very powerful. For example, in the English to French translation task, the blue score can reach the score of 41.8, and this is much better than the former models, especially the old mainstream model. And the original vanilla transformer, this is the first model in the transformer family. It has more than 200 million parameters. And this is also much better, much bigger than what it is in the let alone the statistic models. Usually statistic models only have maybe thousands of parameters. All right. This model can also have another advantage, that is it can process the input data in parallel, so that it can provide more computing efficiency. But it is still very slow because it is a very big model. Then the self-attention, it is the fundamental mechanism for the transformer. And at first, we will embed the input sentence. Yeah, for each word, we will use embedding vector of double values to embed it. Yeah, and it is the length of it is D, and the N is the number of the input words. Well, actually, if there's no N word, we will fill to that length. Then we will use 3 parameter matrix WQ, WK, WV to calculate the query matrix, the K matrix, and the value matrix. After that, we will need to calculate the attention matrix. At first, we do the Q multiple K transpose. Yeah, in this matrix, we can do something like the mask. This is an important operation. I will illustrate it later, and then do the software max. It is used to scale the value in the matrix to the range from 0 to 1, and then we calculate the output. It is a microwave. Yeah. In practice, we use multiple head attention. This is a little upgrade for the self attention. That is, after we calculate the Q, K, and V, we will split it. Yeah, and then calculating the sub output with sub Q, sub K, and sub V, the same way in this page. Yeah. Then we will calculate, concatenate all the sub output and get the final output.
sorry, can we ask a question?
Yeah.
In the splitting,
Yeah.
is that done randomly, or is there some mechanism to that splitting where things are uncorrelated or not related across the splitting?
The split scheme is the same for every vector.
Okay, so it's just a predetermined how it's
Yeah,
split.
predetermined.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's the architecture of the transformer. Here is a plot of it. And as we say, the attention is the core of it. And it also provide it also indicate a kind of attention called masked multiplied attention. This is when we don't want to use the information from some tokens in the input, or we will need to mask it, and we do it in this step, that in the QK transpose. we will set the column that is matched to that token into negative infinite, so that after the softmax it is 0, so that we can mask that token. But in practice, we will let the upper triangle of the QKT into the negative infinite. So that when we calculate the, for example, the second output token, we won't use the token from the third token in the input. Yeah, and then yeah, this picture only shows one encode block and one decode block, but actually it has 6 encode blocks and 6 decode blocks in the vanilla transformer model. Yeah, and this will lead to a lot of parameters and a very big computing pressure. But I think only in this way you can cope with high complexity and the variability of the natural language. Yeah. So then it's a GPT model. It is very powerful even among the transformer models. And it only uses the decoder block of the transformer in the last page. Yeah, however, it has much more blocks. Yeah, and actually the embedding vector for each word is also much longer than that in the vanilla transformer. And it also allows a much bigger maximum length of the input tokens, number of input tokens. Yeah, this will also significantly increase the number of parameters. And it also train with a very huge training data. And as we say, the newest GPT-4 has 100 trillion parameters, which is around 500,000 times of vanilla transformer model. Yeah, it will have a very huge pressure on the machines. So this is why the big companies usually buy the super GPUs. Yeah. And the Copilot uses GPT 3.5. It is still quite big and have around 1 billion parameters. And yeah, it is quite helpful when you want to, for example, doing the coding or generate some text, yeah, or even PPTs. It is very helpful. And that's it. Thanks.
So there's no way to use ChatGPT 4 for Copilot?
Yeah, no way. It is a much bigger model. So if everyone use that in the Copilot, it will generate too big pressure on the machines for the OpenAI. Yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. John, you're gonna provide the demo now, right?
Right.
Okay.
For a demo.
All right.
Hey, you want to quit sharing your screen?
Return your screen.
Okay. Of course, I left something on the screen to show you. I'm pretty much just going to demonstrate how to use this. Simple functions, nothing really all that exciting.
Can you increase your font size?
Well, I guess I could.
Yeah. Would you?
Okay. Right. Oh, I get rid of there it goes. that large enough or do you need larger?
Maybe one more. Could be a little bigger. Do it. Move on.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the first thing to talk about is how to actually install it. This is RStudio. It can be installed in RStudio. It doesn't work with the regular R IDE to my knowledge, just RStudio. And you have to have a GitHub account and have paid for the license to use Copilot. I was going to say ChatGPT and couldn't get it out of my head. And to install, it's actually quite easy. Just go under Tools, Global Options. Scroll down. Then there's Copilot at the bottom. This is in the latest version though. You need version 3.9. Most everybody has 3.6 right now. And they released 3.9 a couple months ago, and this was added in there. So you come down to the Copilot thing.
Even if you haven't paid, it will still show up.
It'll still show up. You just can't enable it. You just gotta sign in and where did I put it? I'm gonna need my phone here because I'm going to log in and GitHub makes you do dual factor authentication. Okay, so all you have to do is, this is what it'll look like when you first get it, or the new version of RStudio. All you like to do is hit enable GitHub, and then it'll say sign in there. It knows me, so it keeps me signed in. You hit the sign in, it'll open up a web browser for GitHub. Asking you to log in with ID that it'll give you here. And once you've done that, you're good to go. That's all it takes. It will download one package from GitHub to do it. You'll notice R in the background will go install or GitHub.-install the name of the package, and that's all that's needed. So I've already connected, I've already enabled it, it knows who I am. So we're good with this, or I am.
You don't need to index files.
What?
That's okay. There was a middle box that you didn't check about indexing files and Copilot.
I never used it. I looked at a demo. I only realized this was available last week and haven't played with all the functions yet. So you can trust me that it's installed right now. And let's see, when I start typing things like, let's do something simple, write a function to calculate the perimeter and area of a circle. And watch things go wrong. See, it tries to complete things based on what I've done before. So not doing that, so. Like Paul was saying, you should be as specific as possible. And watch what happens. It gives me that, which means that's just the perimeter. Where's everything else? It seems to not understand that I'm an R. But now watch what happens if I do this. I'm just going to load tidy first. Of course, I could have typed the line quicker, but it now seems to understand I'm an R though after that. Now I'm going to ask it to write that function again. It actually wrote a function. And that actually does do the right thing. So it does work. It's like, I don't understand that first time, why when I typed it at the top, it doesn't show it. It just gives me that weird one line. When I install tidyverse, it seems to understand, oh, I'm using R. I'm going to write an R function for him now. So there are things like that to worry about. What was the other one? I was going to write. Okay, yeah. Well, I might as well cut and paste. It's easier. Okay, I've been working on, I got this data spread over a couple directories, the original data and then the updated data. But the updated data is only the data was updated, so you still got to merge the two together. You got to remove the old data and put in the new data. Well, I'm trying to do something that will help me with that. So they're all in CSV files. And I'm asking it to write me a function that will find all the CSV files in that set of directories that I have. And sure enough, it actually turned around and wrote code that will read the CSV files. Yeah, in a list, right. The first time I wrote this, I didn't put returning a list of vectors of the CSV files. It actually read in all the CSV file names and concatenated them together into one vector. No, I need to know which ones are in which directory. So I had to tell it, again, to be specific and write it into a list.
Can I, oh, sorry.
Sure.
About the previous example, does it only take into account things where you've asked for help? Or if you had just manually typed library tidyverse and then gone straight to the comment, like would it recognize the context of the overall document, or does it only recognize context from things that you've asked it to provide?
I don't know. Let's find out. Oops. And you can always begin your comment or what you're asking it to do with the hashtag there.
How does it differentiate that between that and a regular comment?
I don't think it does.
I think it is correct.
So it's gonna look at everything.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's annoying. But you live with it because then it will suggest something afterwards. You just ignore what it suggests. Don't accept the suggestion. I know, I find that annoying. After late.
I want to tell to write the functions in our language that will take care of finding which language.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I was saying that you may want to tell GPT to write the functions in the R language. Will R for sure. You have to do library tidyverse or library. You cannot figure it out because it's our library. But if you just tell it write in R, it will in R, I suppose.
When you say write a function, write an R function.
Yeah, that would be the additional context.
I thought I did once before. Oh, let's try that one there. We got time? Oh yeah, we got
That
plenty
was
of time.
interesting. It knew to do it in R without you asking it. Yeah, for the previous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
R is not a more clean programming language name, but I think it's R or the R language or something like that, or R programming language.
You know, I could spell perimeter wrong. It figures it out. No?
I think it's really important to remember that it's not actually intelligent. right? And what it's doing is just looking for that dialogue or what that context and trying to predict what's next. And when people comment their R code, they don't write an R function, right? They say write a function. So it's not capable of recognizing from that comment, oh, you're using R. It's very tempting, at least in my experience, to sort of mentally assign intelligence to it, but it's really not intelligent. It's just pattern recognition or imputation or prediction.
So to that point, when I write a function, I don't write a comment that says write a function. I'll just say like calculate the area and perimeter of a circle. Is there?
Let's try it.
Do you want to give it more of a ChatGPT style?
I like giving it to being specific about it.
Yeah.
That helps, like Paul was saying.
And is there a Copilot for C++?
This works with C++ too. If I were in a C++ environment here, using RCPP and had a C++ code in there, it recognizes it's C++ and does write in C++.
So somewhere it's picking up whether you're coding in C++ or R.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that library tidyverse, once it sees that, it's like, oh, this is R. And if I probably started something with include std, or whatever the standard library, stdlib.h, it'd probably go, yep, that's C. Okay, so what were you saying? Function, just put function in there?
Calculate.
Just start with calculate the perimeter in your.
Well, then it's just going to write a single line or a couple lines to do it. It's not going to put it in a function.
Yeah, let's see what the fairness is.
Nope, it didn't.
Well, because-
What?
You say square.
Oh, yeah, say square.
Say square. Say rectangle.
It's always fun playing with this. Sometimes it gives you some really.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's just the perimeter.
One other thing that's worth noting is that you don't necessarily get the same answer or the same suggestion if you give it the same cue twice, right? There is some sort of noise inherent in the system.
Yeah.
I don't know how it does that, but you're not guaranteed to get the same answer every time.
Well, the softmax function leaves a non-zero probability for other choices, and it just tends to overweight the first column.
I guess,
It's not a deterministic search.
yeah. Well, if I put write a function to calculate it, it does do it correctly. That does look correct, right? Yeah. So I guess you could always put it in, tell it what to do, and then go, okay, I don't need to remember that, and just take out the write a function to part. Afterwards, it's still commented. Never really thought of that. And I decided I do not have time to explain this. I might actually, but I actually was doing something, actual work. Believe it or not, I do work. And this is the function. Okay. I was having problems with telling it to write a function in R. I saw somewhere include language R there. It didn't fix it.
Oh.
I still had to go load the tidyverse in. And here's something else a little strange. Yeah, I'll hold off on that. But no, I needed to find the files that began with a number and were just CSV files. Okay, these are simple functions. I know that. I knew the list.files one at least. Yeah, and then I wanted to find where the two joined. I couldn't remember off the top of my head what it was. Oh, it's set diff. You know, I've used it before. I just don't use it often enough to remember it. It remembers. I'm giving it intelligence, but and then that other directory I concatenated the directory structure on there so it fit. But then when we get down to line 18 there, read all the variables from those files into data frames with column vectors as character variables and combine them into one data frame and name it V3.1. Rather specific, I think.
Can you read it through one more time?
Okay.
I can't see it.
Because it's green, yeah. It's quite-
Oh,
Read what you said.
Just read the
Read it
statement.
again.
okay. Okay, read all the files in files V3.1 into data frames with all columns character variables and combine them into one data frame and name it V3.1. So I'm taking all those file names, reading in all those files into data frames, and then combining them into one data frame. And I had to tell it to use character variables because it screwed up the first time because I have user IDs in there. Some of the users' IDs are just numbers and other ones are character. So to make sure that it read it all together, I forced it to read them all in as characters. I can deal with the other part later on. I never heard of this map DFR function before. And guess what? It works. It reads in all the data and combines them into one data frame. So,
You have to go back to Happy Scientist 3 to learn that.
oh, that was in there? Well, how many times have I used it? And do you think I would have remembered it? And then the other part, reading in that data file near the bottom on 24, I was told how it was formatted. So I just wrote it in, even though I just could have cut and pasted it out of the email the person wrote me. This is how you read it in. Oh, okay. I could have cut and pasted, but given given Copilot enough information, was able to load it. I just wanted to make sure it could load it. And this is just a demo anyway. And then there's set diff and intersect. I forgot about intersect too, but no, the line 32, it got that one wrong, and I could never figure out how to get it correct. I'm going to remove line 31. It's removing a group of columns from a data set. That's wrong. It looks right, but it's wrong. It's dplyr, or I think it's from dplyr, the select command. It's in tidyverse somewhere. They've changed it. You got to put in one of or something. One of.
Well, Chat GPT 3.5 is like from 2021, right? So
Okay.
if they only use Chat GPT 3.5 and you don't update it, then
Okay.
it's gonna get worse and worse.
Yeah. Well, it all depends on where it's learning it from. Is it currently learning?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
Well, Jim first.
This is a but I thought Chat GPT is the back end.
I thought they were different things. I think I'm by different companies.
No, I thought they were owned by the same people.
Are they?
Or
You can say OpenAI. Yeah, I said under Microsoft.
GPT 4.0 just recently became real time.
Okay.
So it had a calendar version deadline, and then they updated it to be able to learn in real time, search the web in real time, essentially.
okay.
But
Yeah, with all of these, this is the issue with the tidyverse. With all of these, if you ask it to write it in VSR, it gives you an answer that aren't wrong. At least with GPT 3.5, answers work. In tidyverse, we have some stuff that I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, because I know if I didn't load tidyverse, it did it another way. It actually came up with a method to read them in and combine them into one file.
There you
It
go.
still
Next
works.
time, use a different library for your library stat or something.
Right.
Already there. I don't
There
know.
was some issue I was having with it. I forgot what it was. And then I Googled, yeah, whenever you run into problems, it doesn't work. Google, oh, it's 90% right. It's got that little bit wrong. And that's,
if you spot something wrong like that and you correct it, is it gonna learn and do it right next time, or?
I've had it do it right the next time and I've had it do it wrong the next time. Seems hit and miss. You know, I wrote a function to do something, I was passing it something, and it came out with code that was almost right. It just forgot to put it was reading a list, and I wanted the first element in each of the list items. It was just putting bracket, bracket, one, bracket, and not bracket, bracket, one again for the list inside the list. I fixed that, then, okay, use the second value in each of these lists and do the function. And it wrote that one correctly, almost identical to the first one. It's doing something slightly different, but it got that one right after I corrected the first one. So maybe I don't want to say it's learning that's giving an intelligence, but it does fix things. Sometimes it's your prompting. But when I tried to rewrite that code again somewhere else, it went back to the old way. Corrected it. Next time, it got it right again. But I think it was all within one function. When I tried to do the same thing in a different function, it went back to its old method. So it does appear to be looking at the context. Well, basically, that's really all I wanted to demonstrate, unless somebody wants to see another question asked of it. We got a few minutes.
So how broad of a question do you think you can ask? I see, you know, very specifically, I can see, but could you say, run a regression analysis and check the residuals or something?
Still might have.
You might have to be a little more specific. Run a linear regression on this data with the output being variable y and the covariates being the other variables, whatever they are. And then check the residuals or something.
Yeah.
You probably could get away with that. It might accept that. Because it really isn't doing that much. It's just running a GLM followed by looking at the residuals, which are returned in GLM.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you could look at residuals, and I'm just kind of wondering whether it's, you know, is it going out of regression residuals and then giving you a suggested, you know, by a post hoc analysis kind of thing.
Okay, I mean, if you did the initial regression and save the result and ask it to do something based on that result, would probably be an easier way to go. Okay, I'm guessing no more questions. Got anything to add, Paul?
No, not really. It was a great demo. I mean, it's clear from what you've seen, I hope, that there's a learning curve here. What's probably not clear is it's a hell of a lot of fun just messing around with this and seeing what it comes up with. So I really encourage you to play with it. But it is caveat emptor, right? There's no guarantee that what it suggests will be correct. It generally does seem to get things right, but certainly the more specialized you get, the less likely it seems to be to get things right. But it's potentially, I think, really useful. My suspicion is it's more useful. The more common the language is, the more widely used the language is, the more useful it is. So I suspect it's more useful for Python than it is for R, or for C++ for that matter, than for R, because R is a relatively specialized language, but it still seems to be pretty good for R.
Yeah, I forgot, there's one other demo I had here. Unfortunately, I cannot find what I wrote to get it, but I kept the function. I have this comma delineated string, but there's strings inside there that have commas that I don't want to delineate by. I forgot the wording I used to get R to do it, but it returned that function on line 4, I think. Yeah, and guess what? It works. I have no idea what it means, but it works. So it does do some surprising things. I was expecting it to write a little function to break them up. No, it actually does it in one line. It actually does work. I beat it up quite a bit. No, every time I did it, it worked. So it does provide some interesting code at times.
So Paul, will you be, are you gonna look into the cost thing and whether there's a way to get an academic license or something?
Yeah, I will look into that. They definitely claim there is. I just haven't managed to finesse it yet. And sorry, John.
Who's they?
GitHub itself, I think.
Okay.
There's some site I was looking at, and it tells you how to do it, but it didn't work the way it was supposed to work for me. So I'll continue to look into that. And then just to reiterate something I said earlier, I encourage you to go away and use it. If you find you are doing that, and it would be useful to have another session in a month or two in which we just compare notes and perhaps just show examples of things that worked for us and examples of things that didn't, et cetera, et cetera. Whether you're student or faculty, just let me know and we'll set that sort of session up. But I won't do it unless I have a critical mass of people who are actually interested in that, because it's only going to work if people have been using it. So if you do find yourself using it, shoot me an email and we'll set something up later on in the semester.
Yeah.
For students, there is like GitHub student, and you can actually get it through that if you type in your .edu address for free, and like you don't need any other USD affiliation or anything. So for students, it's straightforward.
Oh, good to know.
How do you do that in,
Like you.
So, see, I wonder,
For faculty, you can get it, but
I have a lab GitHub that I've gotten the educational discount for the GitHub, right? So I'm wondering if I add Copilot to that, it'll kick in and give me the discount. And I think I remember when I set that up, I had to put in a credit card and act as if I was paying, and then tell them I was an educational sort of group, and then they gave me the discount. So I'm at that stage of hitting that right now on my computer, but I'm a little hesitant, but.
If you do it, David, could you let me know what happens?
Yeah. Well, I'll do it. We'll see. There we go. Any other questions?
Did it work?
It's acting as if it's charging my credit card.
Has your bank account been drained?
Yeah.
What bank account?
Okay.
Takes a while to distribute all those offshore accounts.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.